Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Enter, welcome back to the channel. Today we have 10.13 update notes to go over. We're going to be covering all the balance and stuff in this video, and have a video coming out shortly after on Bakekujira and his kit once they show it on the patch notes show. But there's a bunch of balance and all that kind of stuff for this update as well. It's going to be essentially the last balance update before Worlds. 10.13 is going to be an extended patch cycle from what I've heard, of like 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks or something like that, and there's going to be content drops throughout 10.13, but this balance right here that we're going to go over is essentially what Worlds is going to be played on. There's going to be no more balance after this until after the World Championship and with Year 11 and all that kind of stuff. So essentially this is what we're going to be playing Smite on until Year 11, as far as I'm aware at least. First up, we have some Duel stuff. So a bunch of gods are now auto-banned from Duel. 32 of the most played gods are now auto-banned from the mode. It doesn't seem to list them all here. With the way I've got it set up on Streamlabs, you guys can't see these other ones, but I'll try and edit them in. There's these ones here that you can see, and there's also Anhur, Hades, Huyi, Bastet, Ula, Anubis, Bakasura, Poseidon, Maman, Brigitte, Skadi, and Freya. So those plus all these gods you can see here are going to be auto-banned from Duel, which is an interesting change. I don't really play Duel. I can't comment on this. I don't know if this will actually improve the Duel meta or not. To me, I don't like this, but I'm not a Duel player, so take my opinion with like the biggest possible heap of salt that you can. But for me, I'm not personally a fan of them just banning all the top performing gods, because then you're just going to get another 32 gods that are the top performers, and then they'll just get played all the time. I don't think it'll really solve any issues, but yeah, changes to Duel there. Bunch of top gods are now automatically banned in Duel. For Conquest, mid-HP base XP got nerfed, so you're going to be getting a little bit less from those, and Crimson Totem has gone from 10% to 7% magical lifesteal, which makes sense. A lot of magical lifesteal is being built right now. Typhons, as we see here, is really broken. You got like Pythagorean's Peace and stuff, and Bloodstock Shroud in the solo lane for mages and stuff like that, so nerfing that lifesteal makes sense. Typhons loses 5 power and reduced magical power to magical lifesteal conversion rate from 2 times to 1.5 times, so you're now only going to get 1.5 times your lifesteal added as power. This item's still really good. It still has 20% pen, ridiculously high power, good lifesteal, increased healing from lifesteal. If you have other lifesteal items in your build, which you often do at the moment, this item's still really good. Vampiric Shroud decreased power by 5, lifesteal by 2, health restore by 1, and mana restore by 2. This is pretty significant. This is a nerf to basically everything that this item does in a small way. The mana, probably not an enormous issue for solo lane mages. Generally, you know, you got your totems that mages get a lot, especially if they're facing a non-mage in solo lane. You've got your blue buff and all that kind of stuff, but this health restore, you know, this has gone down by essentially 33%. This has gone down by 33% as well. This has gone down by 5 power. Like, this will make a difference to how the item feels in the early game. For me, I've been experimenting with going gem on solo mages anyway. I know Vampiric Shroud is like really good for the sustain, and it probably is better, but after these nerfs, if gem doesn't get touched, gem seems really good. Just gem and a gem and focus. I've been liking it on Poseidon, I've been liking it on Morgan Le Fay in solo. I think gem is probably going to be the go-to after these nerfs, because this is pretty heavy-handed here. Obviously, mage solos have been running the meta for the last month or so, and it's been very unfun to play, and I imagine they don't want that just being the entire meta at Worlds, and therefore they're going a little bit hard on the nerfs here, it seems, because this is pretty substantial for just a tier 1 starter item. This has lost a lot of power here. Bloodstock Shroud loses 10 power and reduced health and mana restore on the passive from 1.2 and 1.5 to just 1% of both. So not an enormous nerf to Bloodstock Shroud. The mana in the late game isn't really that big of a deal. You're usually going to have plenty of mana, but the health going down from 1.2 to 1 is a little bit of stuff there as well. But mainly this is for the first upgrade of this. This is much more heavy than the changes to Bloodstock Shroud. Enchanted Trinket loses 2% lifesteal and 5 power as well, and Pythax Piece loses the same stats as well as the magical power on the passive aura and the magical lifesteal on the passive aura. So essentially this thing is losing 4% lifesteal and 10 power when you're fully leveled it up, which is pretty significant. It's still going to be a really good item, but of course this thing went under the radar for forever until Mage Solo started popping up. So, you know, whether this item is just sleeper OP and even these nerfs is still going to be strong, or whether it's going to fall out of favor in terms of, you know, maybe you want to go something else with your mage solos, I'm not really sure. But definitely nice to see these kind of nerfs. Obviously, the mage solo build, they all build the same. They all just rush Pipe Piece into a breastplate. So these kind of nerfs are going to affect all kinds of mage solos. Breastplate affects warriors too in a certain way, but obviously Pipe Piece and Vamp Shroud is purely just to bring down these mages in solo. Breastplate of Valor also loses 5 Fizz Prots and 5 MP5 as well. This is fine. I don't think Breastplate is like such a major issue as people make it out to be. The glyph was the main thing that was completely broken when they buffed that, they've already reverted that, and they also have nerfed the base item, and now they're nerfing the base item again. I don't know if this is back to where it was before, or like even worse than it was before. I'm not really sure, but yeah, this item isn't as big a deal as like Pyth Piece and Shroud, in my opinion, especially because warriors can also build this item. So in terms of solving the mage solo meta, the Pyth Piece change and the tier 1 Vamp Shroud change are definitely the biggest ones here. Looks like we do get some buffs to warrior itemization though. We've got Berserker Shield, decreased cost and increased health. We've got Glad Shield, decreased cost and increased health. Phalanx, decreased cost and increased health. Pestilence, decreased cost and added 15 HP 5, which is quite nice. Maybe this is a little bit more of a viable option into those mage solos now. You're going to get some anti-heal value against like their Shroud and their Pyth Piece and stuff like that if they're still building the same way, and then you get a little bit of HP 5 there as well. So that will definitely help out a lot with Pestilence if you want to buy that in the laning phase. Archdruid's Fury gains 5 of each prots. Dawnbringer also gets some HP 5, which could be kind of nice. This isn't really a lane rush item. Adding HP 5 to it, you know, won't do too much to it, I feel like. Adding HP 5 to something like Pestilence is a bigger deal because Pestilence is a lane rush item if you're into like a mage with heavy healing. Whereas I don't see Dawnbringer as a lane rush item unless this HP 5 just tips it over the edge into being like a really strong item, because it does have power and health and HP 5 now. Like, it's a really good bruiser item. The stats are honestly somewhat similar to Glad Shield before they removed the power from it. Just HP 5, power, health, just general good stats. But I generally don't see this item being a rush in the laning phase. It works off of like percent prots when you ult and stuff like that. But we'll see, could become a bit more of a viable option in warrior builds. And Warrior's Axe gets 5 more physical power as well. Pretty big deal. 5 physical power is not a small amount considering that, you know, physical auto attack scale at 100% of your power. So this is adding 5 damage to every single auto attack you do throughout the entire laning phase. That is actually a bigger change than you'd think. The issue kind of is that if mages are still going to be running the meta, you don't really want to be going Warrior's Axe. You kind of want to be going like Bluestone to kind of keep up with them and clear, because if you just go Warrior's Axe, your clear is going to be so bad. Unless you're literally trying to just murder them on the first wave. That can kind of work, but yeah, we'll see. Arpwash gets decreased max health on his corpse eating and decreased the cooldown reduction on Undead Surge and Corpse Explosion when picking up a corpse from 2 seconds to 1 second as well. Very good nerfs. These were way too high in general. It maybe shouldn't even be max health. It maybe should be flat or something. I'm not sure. Just to kind of nerf Tank Plash a little bit, because that's kind of how he's being played in solo, obviously, with the solo builds for mages. But this is a pretty big deal as well. Basically halving the cooldown reduction that he gets from just spamming corpses at walls and eating them all. So that's going to nerf his sustain pretty substantially in this solo lane laning phase. Athena gets some decreased HP 5 per level, increased cooldown on the taunt, so it's just 18 flat now instead of 18 scaling down, and increased cooldown on the ult by 10 seconds, and decrease the damage mitigation. So yeah, Athena's been completely dominating the meta since her spicy changes that she got. I think she will still dominate the meta because globals are just very powerful with the current state of the map and the meta. And so I still expect to see a ton of Athena. She's probably going to still be top pick ban. She's probably going to be seen at Worlds a ton, especially at Worlds. The SPL teams are big fans of globals and the plays that you can make with them, so I still expect to see a lot of Athena, but very good nerfs overall. This ult definitely belongs on 120. I feel like it's definitely one of the most powerful ults in the game, and decreasing the mitigation as well. Taunt going to be up a little bit less often in the late game. Chernobog gets a similar treatment, 120 seconds on his ult. I think this is a good, like, baseline for what most global ults should be. Not semi-globals like Thor and Rat and stuff like that, but fully global ultimates probably should be on 120 seconds as, like, a baseline, and then if they're insanely strong, they can maybe even go a little bit higher to, like, 130, 140 or something like that. You don't want these ults being up under, like, 100 seconds or anything like that, because it just creates really unfun metas where it's, like, Chernobog split pushing Duel in the whole time, farming up to level 20 while he can just ult over to any fight he wants to. It's really frustrating to play into. We've all seen the Athena bog lanes that have been dominating the game for a while. Reduced movement speed on his ult as well when he lands, and decreased damage mitigation when he lands as well. They should just remove this. I don't understand why he needs damage mitigation when he lands from this global ult that slows everyone and gives him like a fully activated passive and extra movement speed. This just doesn't need to be there. They could have deleted this and it would still be a great ability in my opinion. Maman Brigitte gets some more nerfs, definitely justified. This god is somehow still underrated. People still don't think she's that strong. She is ridiculously good when you play her effectively. They have decreased the bonus mark damage scaling from 5% to 2.5% on the Madame Fangs and removed the base damage from the mark. That is really significant. Maman plays off of this more than you would think. As soon as you hit this and just start spamming your 1 cancel and a few autos in between, your 3's damage as well, you are getting an insane amount of damage out of this ability. So removing that base damage, I can't remember how much it actually is, but the amount of times you can just keep reactivating this over and over again with your 1 and autos and stuff like that, this is going to make her lose a lot of damage. A lot. So good nerf overall. We'll see where she falls after this. She is quite a hard god to play, so I think her win rate and community perception is like a little bit under where she actually is, in my opinion. Someone that is good at this god can completely dominate, so definitely a justified nerf. We'll see where she is after that. Poseidon, arguably the best mage solo. I've started spamming him lately. I kind of given up playing warriors. Just decided I'll fall to the dark side, play some mage solos. I cannot lose on Poseidon. I can try and I can't lose. This god is insane. He has everything you need for solo. His PvE, he 2-shots the first totem with his 2. He solos silvers really effectively, clears the wave really effectively, obviously. His movement speed is ridiculous, so you can get around to like other farm sources or rotations. This guy just has everything you want from a solo laner, other than being a frontliner, but you know, who cares about frontliners now, right? Frontliners don't exist in Smite anymore. I'm not furious, I promise. Decreased bonus ability damage at max tide from 20% to 15%. Increased cooldown on Trident. This is a great change. If you have 40% cooldown, which you instantly do in these mage solo builds with Breastplate and Pythags into Shoguns, this ability is permanently up, pretty much. You have about 1 second of it being down after it wears off, and it's immediately back up. So increasing the cooldown in the late game, absolutely a great change. This is amazing. Decrease the base damage on it by 10 at all ranks as well. So you probably won't 2-shot the first totem anymore, with it only being 20 damage instead of 30. Good changes overall. We'll see if Poseidon needs more, because of course with all these mages that are getting specific nerfs, they're also nerfing the build, and so it will kind of compound on top of each other, like pretty heavy nerfs for the mages alongside pretty heavy nerfs to their builds. Maybe we'll see some warriors come back in a little bit. This patch to me looks like they've kind of just been like, okay, we'll capitulate on it. Mage solos are a real problem. Let's just fucking nerf them all. That's seemingly what they're doing here. Raijin also gets some decreased base damage on its Percussive Storm. This guy got nerfed last patch pretty heavily as well, so I'm not surprised to see only a smaller nerf for him compared to like Poseidon or Apuash. Ratatoskr, also a very popular jungler at the moment, gets a little bit of a nerf to Acorn Blast, mainly in like the late game base damage. This doing 170 per Acorn, it's now going to be doing 150, and also they've taken 5% scaling off of it as well. Rat's not exactly a problem character, I won't say, but he is one of the top junglers, so it's understandable to see him get nerfed. Looks like we're going to be getting a lot of warrior buffs. Warriors are the class receiving the most buffs in this update for obvious reasons. We particularly focused on giving some of them increased presence in the lane. That is what's needed. I'm glad they recognize that. Mostly through better or more consistent sustain. Well, sustain is one thing, but if the mage just insta-clears the wave and you start losing gold to tower and they get all the farm, sustain doesn't mean shit. They do need to be able to clear the wave. But yeah, withstanding the mage poke is also another aspect of it. So Achilles changed max targets on the heal to just 4 at all ranks. So even with 1 point in this ability, now you're going to be able to heal from 4 different targets, which is really nice. Will help his sustain, as they mentioned. Combat dodge goes down in cooldown in the early game, but it's the same late game. You probably still level this ability as solo Achilles, I would imagine, but it just means in the first few levels when you're just getting this ranked up, you're just going to have this up more often. This ability hits really hard if you use it properly in the laning phase, getting collateral on the enemy god while you're hitting the wave with it to get the second hit. This thing does hit really hard, so some definitely nice buffs to Achilles there. Bologna, they have increased the heal on the 3rd hit of Scourge by 4 at all ranks. Not a huge, enormous deal. They seem to be focusing a lot on sustain here, whereas I wish they would focus a little bit more on Warrior's ability to actually PvE and clear the wave. I feel like that's more of the bigger problem. Sustain is still relevant and everything, but I feel like it's a bigger problem that Warriors just cannot pressure whatsoever. Increased damage on Eagle's Rally by like 10 through 50, depending on the rank as well. Not really gonna do anything for her. This doesn't help her lane pressure. This doesn't help her sustain. I don't really know where this buff's coming from. This looks like something they just slapped on because they didn't know what else to buff on Bologna. Tia increased physical power scaling on the Assault Stance Fearless and decreased the cooldown from both stances. Oh, it goes down to 13 in the late game now. God damn. Tia is one you have to be careful with. I know he has like a bad win rate right now and people think he's like utterly trash, but this god can start dominating the meta with absolutely no warning, and this going down to like probably under 10 seconds, right, with max CDR in the late game, that's kind of insane, dude. Having under 10-second dashes. He obviously has 2 of them. He has his ult as well. He has Unyielding passive to make sure he doesn't get CC'd. This guy can be super annoying when this cooldown is low, so we'll see how this plays out. Hua Mulan, they have decreased the requirement for 2nd rank of Sword by 500 and the 3rd rank of Sword and Spear as well by 500. This will definitely help her out a lot. Obviously, Maman, before you get these ranked up to level 2 and you get the second and third hit on these, she is utterly garbage. But once you get those, she actually has, like, ridiculous damage and lane pressure. She can, like, one-hit you with just 2 and 1. It's kind of insane. So this will actually be pretty big for Maman, getting this trained up essentially 25% faster up to rank 2. The third rank's not exactly a big deal. The third rank just gives you, like, extra attack speed on the 1 and... is it extra healing on the 2 or something like that? The main thing you want from these is the second hit, which is this one. And this training 25% faster is definitely going to be a big deal for Maman in terms of the laning phase. She will still get bullied out early on. That's kind of how Maman always is. But once she gets these online, she can clear really effectively. And her god damage is kind of ridiculous once these come online. So we'll see. Maman might have a lot more potential. Gilgamesh, increased damage to lane minions. See, this is the kind of changes I want to see. I feel like them focusing on sustain so much is, like, not really where they want to be. But they reduced the HP 5 by 10 at all ranks, but the HP 5 is now active at all times, so he's just going to permanently have, like, 10 up to 30. I don't know if you were ranking this ability first beforehand, but if you weren't, you probably are now. 30 HP 5 once you get this up to level 9, or once you get to level 9, get this up to rank 5. That's going to be a really big deal. 30 HP 5 is... little over half of a health pot just permanently ticking, or like basically a multi-pot, a little bit more than a multi-pot of health just permanently ticking back to you, which is a pretty big deal. Low-key gets some buffs, increased base damage on Vanish by 5 all ranks. This seems like a throwaway buff. I don't think Loki needed anything really, and this isn't going to change anything about him whatsoever. Raven, increased the power scaling on his 1, and increased the power scaling on his ult. Obviously, you don't want to give him more shields or more sustain or anything like that, because then he's just going to be back to Raven meta in solo, so I think these changes are fine. 110% scaling is a lot on his ult though, dude. He's going to be chunking people. Sylvanas, stun now no longer is reduced by diminishing returns on Nature's Grasp. Okay, that's good. That's good, because obviously this gets hit with a pull, which is 2 stacks of DR, and then the stun is immediately reduced by 40%. Potentially more than that if they got CC beforehand. Like, if you use your 1 into your 3, you're rooting them, you're pulling them, that's 3 stacks of DR, and then the stun basically is non-existent. I hope they make a similar change to Hercules at some point, because on maybe Morgan Le Fay as well, because they're suffering from similar issues. Obviously, Morgan Le Fay doesn't need buffs right now, but at some point when she's not dominating the meta, I'd like to make them see her fear be non-DRable or something like that. Geb, they have increased the damage at the max range of his 2 from 70 to 80. Should help him with, like, clearing the wave, poking and stuff like that, and decrease the cooldown of shield. Not going to be an enormous deal, really. Apollo, increased power scaling on his 1, decrease the mana cost. Oh, don't decrease the mana cost of his ult, dude. God damn it. 20 mana plus, oh my god. He's not going to be good, I don't think, but, like, I just hate when Apollo's meta and he can fly around the sky for literally 25 minutes, choosing where he wants to land and still have half his mana bar left to spam abilities when he lands. I'm just molding, dude. Don't mind me. Medusa, increased base damage per shot on the Viper shot and decrease the mana cost to 50 at all ranks. That's a good change. This is quite high for no real reason at the end there, so I think it's a good change. Acid Spray, they have done a similar thing as well, just decreasing the mana cost a little bit. Kronos, increased base attack speed by a tiny bit and decrease the cooldown of his 1. A lot of these just look like kind of throwaway changes to me. Increased base damage on Zeus ult as well. That's going to chunk in the late game, dude. That's 60 extra damage per tick. If you get someone in like 3 or 4 ticks, that's going to be a pretty significant increase. But yeah, overall, I would say this is a decent patch considering the circumstances. You know, we're going into Worlds. They don't want to completely shake up the game, and I think there's a good amount of changes here. They definitely could have just ignored, like, the Mage solo issue until year 11. I could definitely have seen them doing that, and they didn't, which is nice to see. That they are responding to community feedback and trying to fix the problem. Big nerfs to a lot of the top mages, like Poseidon and Arpwash and their builds and stuff like that. Athena Bog getting nerfed as well will be really good. I don't want to just see Athena and Chernobog dominating Worlds and whoever gets those picks wins, which feels like what it was going to be. I don't think this patch will really change the meta that much, but I don't think that was the aim of it. I imagine we'll get some more significant changes around like year 11 launch. This is just sort of a pre-Worlds patch to sort of bring the meta into a more healthy state. But yeah, overall, decent patch, I would say. I'll give this like an 8 out of 10. Definitely more could have been done, and I think some of these changes, especially like focusing on sustain for warriors, I don't think is the right direction, but other than that, I think it was a decent patch. Let me know down below, what do you guys think of this? Are you excited to see Worlds on this patch? Are you excited for the Mage solo changes? Let me know, and I will catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.